My Lobster Magnet. Lobster's a 10, I told you grab it.
Welcome to Lobster Magnet's Review, the channel, the review. I'm here with my buddy Gorogregoro.
Hey.
Zavule.
Evening, folks.
And the very special guest you might remember if you've been following these vlog review series, Dan the Garbage Man.
Hey.
And we are here to discuss the episode 5 of Rick and Morty, the Whirly-Durly Conspiracy. So, what do you guys think? I think this was a huge improvement over last week's one with the Vindicators.
Yeah, this was a big improvement. And Jesus Christ, Beth is, I think I told you this, Beth is almost as bad as fucking Rick, just on a smaller scale.
Yeah, that side story was pretty funny.
It was a great B plot, but of course the main course was like Rick being like with whatchamacallit, Jerry, and they got a lot of great material out of that.
God, you guys should totally see what I put as the overlay for this episode. I mean,
what did you use?
You probably guessed, but like Jerry getting a ball slapped in the face, like by that creature. I tried to take the most perfect still of it too. Like, I thought it was very important.
I'm glad you were able to get it. So Dan the Garbage Man, I'm kind of curious. Where do you fall on the Jerry spectrum? I'm personally kind of pro Jerry because, like, Jerry, you know, as I've said before in previous reviews, we are more Jerry than we are Rick. You know, none of us are super geniuses. We are more the common schlubs just trying to make our way through life.
I totally hear that. I think if we look at it from like a meta perspective, I mean, basically, the first cartoon that was like this is The Simpsons, and every since then they always have, you know, the stupid dad like trope in every one of them. You know, whether it be Family Guy or whether it be South Park, and they've got different variations on that theme. And so I think that the whole purpose in this is that they shit on that trope so hard all the time. Like, at this point, we've actually got him out of the house, and everyone's claiming it's better for everyone because he's such a piece of shit, and just lay into him every time. And this one is so hard because, like, the opening montage of him, like, naked and washing his boxer or his underwear in the sink, and then, like, I don't know. He looks like he's going to kill himself.
Well, he did say that, like, you know, he thought Rick was, like, going to execute him.
Yeah.
And then Rick comes in, and the way he drags him out is pretty much exactly the way he drags Morty out in the pilot episode.
I remember that.
Pick up on that.
Yeah, so it's almost like, I don't know, he's his Morty for today, and didn't even put on pants. It's just... Oh, and then as the episode progresses, you know, it's just like every single thing is about how pathetic he is. It's amazing.
Yeah, that pretty much hits the nail on the head. And then Rick's ultimate observation that Jerry is the pity predator who basically gets people to, you know, feel sorry for him, and that's how he, you know, that's how he operates.
I don't know. I still continue to slant read that, since, like, Rick is... I mean, he technically has feelings and all this good shit, but he's at heart, he's still a monster. He's a bad person. And
we're talking about Rick, right?
Yeah, I mean, Rick is just a bad person. So you have to take literally everything he says with a grain of salt, especially when it concerns stuff he doesn't like.
Like when Morty described him as a demon or an evil god.
Yeah, I mean, he is a bad person. At best, I would say chaotic neutral. At very best, but if you look at it and just kind of like how I mentioned on the One Piece pod review, you know, swap Pudding's gender and she's terrifying and a monster, and just swap Jerry's gender and watch all the things Beth does to him and Rick does to him, and suddenly he is just as pathetic as you say he is. And a lot of it is because he's just been browbeaten and, you know, kind of just beaten down to the point where it's like, yeah, he will do whatever you say because he's that pathetic. You've made him that pathetic over time.
Yeah.
Do you think they made him that pathetic, or do you think that? I mean, I figured he's like culturally created, and then ends up in this situation where everyone around him is superior to him.
I honestly think it's a little bit of both. Like, he brings it onto himself, and other people are beating him down.
Aggressively average, though. It doesn't necessarily feel he's not like. It's interesting that you bring up that at its core, you're right. Like Rick and Morty is basically like kind of like in the mold of the sitcom, the Honeymooners sitcom that like The Simpsons is based on, and every animated mainstream TV show is. But obviously goes in much wilder in varied directions. But Jerry is like the kind of patriarch, and they do kind of skewer him that he's like the dumbest guy in the room.
Yeah.
But he's not like aggressively stupid, but he is insecure. But he's not as like dumb as like Peter Griffin or Homer Simpson.
Yeah, he's aggressively helpless. And I'm curious to know whether that is like either kind of a learned behavior, or if that is like literally he is just a terrible codependent personality that is just as shitty and awful as Rick says. Because we do have that one flashback of Jerry like running away from this homeless person and locking himself in the car while said homeless person tries to kill Beth.
Wait, when was this?
That was way back in. That was the very beginning of season 2 with the Titanic cruise. Wait, no, with not the Titanic cruise. It was Total Recall, where they all have to try and remember bad things about each other, and that was Beth's memory of Jerry.
Oh, okay, I remember that.
So yeah, again, it's like were you always that just naturally helpless and pathetic, or was that something you were taught to be over time, or just like? I just like I'm quite frankly just amazed that Beth would even go for that.
Well, that's also something I'm kind of curious, and Rick kind of touches about it. But like Beth is Rick's daughter, and he said she had opportunities, and I kind of wonder that like if Jerry didn't like drag her to a more traditional domestic life, would Beth be a super genius? Like she's a doctor and a scientist, but like she doesn't seem like she's like as we see here, where she like tries to fix Summer. She's not Rick level smart or anywhere close to that.
We do have a little bit of insight into that though, especially in the therapy episode when it's revealed they're codependent. Which was a fucking fantastic scene. It does kind of like give us some insight because, quite frankly, if anyone fucked Beth up, it was Rick. So
yeah,
even if she had 100%. Opportunities and all this good shit and could have been a super scientist, he fucked her up by leaving, and so she was attracted to essentially a pathetic codependent personality who would never ever leave her, regardless of how terrible she was to him. Ever.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Like
I can definitely see that.
Like the exact reason she is like disgusted and consistently hates him are probably part of the reason she picked him in the first place.
That was
she doesn't have to worry about him being independent.
That's a good twist. If it's Rick's fault that he ended up with her.
Yeah, Rick was the dream killer, essentially.
I mean, he is consistently the person that makes shit worse in that household.
Yeah, all the problems lead to Rick. And I guess that's why Jerry, like, I feel sympathetic for him as, like, a schmuck. I can empathize with a schmuck more so as fun as Rick it is to, like, see him be the baddest guy in the room. But, it was still, like, a beautiful, this was, like, an example of, like, what you would expect of, like, a bog-standard great Rick and Morty episode.
Yeah.
You've got, like, the high-concept science fiction thing of the immortality field. You've got like the great interpersonal family dynamic, and also I kind of love like the return of like Doofus Rick.
Yeah.
As Rick, yeah, that is kind of interesting.
I do fucking love the morally neutral villain of this episode.
Oh,
Why do you think he's morally neutral?
Because Rick was literally an arms dealer that orchestrated the fall of his planet. And wasn't interested in killing Jerry. Literally just wanted to kill the person that ended up like destroying his civilization.
wait, he was from a previous episode?
Manager in a restaurant.
No, like we got his backstory. He specifically mentioned it's like I hate Rick because he basically destroyed my planet. Like if we swapped this around and had it from his perspective, he would be the hero of this episode. He's not a bad person. He's just furious at the person who basically, I mean, we've seen him sell buns to like Krabopolis Michael or something, the super high-powered assassin. So, I mean, he's not the bad guy here. He doesn't even take the chance to kill Jerry until he basically forces him into it.
He's very relatable when he goes off on a little tirade about what happens if you just go with things and settle, and then you end up working a job you hate, and it's not compromising. It's either blood or it's...
Wait, what? What do you mean? Like, it's either blood or...
Well, okay, so there was a part where he has to either decide to betray Rick or continue living his captive life.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he's trying to convince him, and part of the convincing is, oh yeah, I'm living this, I have to go do this shitty, like assistant manager work where I go sing a birthday song to somebody in the
Oh yeah, he gives me the big speech, and he's like,
compromise, and it's he's living the compromise.
Yeah.
What finally made Jerry decide to go in the whirly-durly? I forget.
well, he wanted to do it because to kill Rick. That was the whole point. That's why it's
but
called
he was
the Whirly
reluctant at
Conspiracy.
first.
Originally, he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
God, what was it?
It was something that set him off. It was like something about maybe Rick. What he said about him and Beth.
Yeah, I'm
not sure if it was
sure
that
it
significant.
was like you know, it was the speech about like blood or compromise, and then Jerry chose blood, and he went along with the Whirly-Durly conspiracy to kill Rick because the Whirly-Durly has like a brief second when you're out of the immortality field.
Yeah, but I think Greg's right. There was a moment where like
there was a breaking point for Jerry
until they were sitting.
Yeah. Originally, he wasn't going to do it. Then there was that breaking point where Rick just shoved him over the edge.
Yes, that's what it was.
But I like this episode is just still a fantastic series of Rick is not a good person. Rick will never be a good person. And just all of the shit he leaves in his wake.
Yeah, as like a destructive monster, but who occasionally like can be a nice guy. Like it was kind of fun to see like the few scenes where like Rick's like actually happy to have like a drink with Jerry.
It fits really well in the continuation of like say like breaking down their marriage and seeing who they are and how they became this way. It's like going all the way back. I mean, at the beginning of the season, they started to tackle that, and then I loved when they were in therapy, and then they just go to Shoney's to drink, and are like, "Yeah, we're not going back to therapy," even though like that therapy totally nailed.
It was probably the best thing for literally everyone in that fucking car.
Yeah, and both Summer and Morty are kind of like regretful about it. Like can we go back?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And Beth is like a raging alcoholic, just like Rick. I mean, she's all about trying to prove herself to the extent that, she's going to let her daughter suffer as a giant monster before falling for help.
Yeah.
Oh, God, we haven't even gotten too deep
to
into
the B storyline.
She basically is Rick, but with way, way, way smaller stakes.
Yeah.
Well, she's just as vain as Rick in the sense that, like, she is, like, incredible pride of her intelligence, which is, like, normal human above par, given the fact that she has a medical degree, and that's her incredible pride. But, of course, she won't let her pride, like, go beyond reason to look for help outside of it to the point where she, turns her daughter into an inside-out monster.
Oh, I love the social engineering joke with the little men inside the box.
That was fantastic.
That was so good. She calls tech support,
and then just so they could let them out and so they can wander off and be free.
Well, was that a reference to something?
I think it was just
reminded me of Calvin and Hobbes when Calvin's dad would talk about the little men that make your garage work whenever Calvin would ask things like that. Nobody read this?
I don't remember that.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I continue to fucking love Morty. Just every once in a while, he just gets fantastic moments.
He had this really good line in the episode where he's like, sit down, Ethan. Your s'mores are melting.
I think Morty has grown a lot as a character. He's his balls are getting bigger. He's tougher. He takes on more shit, and he knows how to do things like disarm neutrino bombs, or he's the only one that can work this freaking growing transmogrification gun.
Yeah, I do fucking love the fact that all of this shit is slowly starting to rub off on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if he's not a genius, he's still getting used to expecting high concept sci-fi adventures, and then just being able to go with the flow.
Yeah. There's the adaptation, also him understanding how Rick's technology works, and even shit. What's his sister's name?
Summer.
Summer was able she knew where Rick kept his shit. She's been either spying on him to figure out where all his secret shit is and what it does, or she's been just taking notes, as they've been doing things.
Yeah,
so it's everybody's got a little more access to Rick's garage, which is interesting.
It's
she's become more integrated as the series go on to become not quite on par with Morty in terms of adventuring, but be more accepted into Rick's life.
Yeah.
Which is interesting if you compare her to Meg, who the only joke that they could come up with is let's just hate on her because fuck Meg.
Yeah.
Versus Rick and Morty, which took the higher and more difficult path of actually integrating her into the adventures, and has gotten some great material out of Summer.
Yeah, she has stopped being just the self-centered teenage girl, and I do think that is probably the best way the series could have gone.
Well, I mean, she did steal the gun to make her boobs bigger.
I was just thinking this episode was kind of all kind of her being self-centered a little bit, and
I don't know. I mean, I still think that is kind of grounded in. I mean, yeah, she's still a teenager. I still feel that's grounded in just your standard well, fine, I'll just go fix this my goddamn self.
Right. Yeah. What I guess what you're saying is not just from this episode, but we get a lot of different kinds of stories from Summer than just distressed teenager.
Exactly. Even that took it into a great high sci-fi direction, and it doesn't feel like we're being bombarded by lame teenager storylines, which is why Summer doesn't feel we don't groan when she's included on the adventure.
Yeah, when she's the B story.
Or, a major component of the A story. So here's one thing I'm kind of dying to ask. So what do you guys think of it seems like every season we get at least one, animation director's freak out scene. What do you guys think of the black hole where, Rick and Jerry became one?
That feels like an experience I've had in the past.
It was a brilliant allusion to a whole lot of things. If you were to break down every single scene in that, all of it was connected to something that's a real thing. You've got Alex Gray drawings, the guy that did the Tool art. You've got he straight up compares it to a salvia trip, which is probably the most realistic drug that you could compare that experience to. There's like
Yeah.
random sci-fi shit. Like the portal itself is a lot like a what is it? Stargate portal. And then I'm trying to think of what else. There's so many different illusions.
There's like references to Space Odyssey, I think.
Yeah, with the baby thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Baphomet symbol.
Yeah, I was kind of curious what the significance of the Bahamut, like, gendered symbol with, like, the man and the woman with the goat head was. I'm sure that there's someone out there who's done, like, a great breakdown. Any ideas here? Come up with the next 2 minutes.
I don't know how it all works together to create a coherent whole so much as that they've, like, sort of transcend everything and basically become enlightened on many levels. And they've all interconnected, so they like know each other, and
then immediately forget about it.
Just go back to the shit there too.
Although I did love that, like, the predator and the prey is like, you know, the homoerotic experience of like Rick and Jerry like rolling around nude, and then it transforms into the antelope and the lion who's like eating Jerry's neck.
Yeah. Oh, it was all brilliant.
Although
I don't think it says anything like deeper than like if you reach. I mean, the word that they used, apotheosis, like cosmic apotheosis. I think it's a real term, and I don't know if it's theology or what, but
what does that
basically
mean?
being like experiencing divinity. So say they reach like the highest level of consciousness in the universe, only to immediately bring it back down to, you know, their egoic level.
Yeah, and then go back to trying to convince yourself to kill somebody.
Yeah.
I think that's what made that scene so funny. It was like, you would expect like there would be a whole bunch of like character growth and be like, oh yeah, none of this shit even matters anymore, does it?
Yeah.
But,
yeah, well, that's Rick and Morty in a nutshell. Although, what do you think of that scene versus like the Moon Man's, you know, scene from like the second season?
The Moon Man thing is a totally different drug experience, because I don't think that he was enlightened in any way in that one. It was more like a psychedelic journey that was very fun, but you don't see like Morty, like, it's transcendental, but it's not like, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean that's basically just going off the idea, like everybody is one, everything is important, but then the joke was just how insignificant non-carbon based life forms view us.
Yes.
And why, in the great scheme of things, well, everything is important, life is important. That's why we're just going to squash you like a bug.
I think that, okay, if we actually look at the result of all three of them after that experience, it's really only Rick that is able to go right back into being Rick. And it's because it's almost like he's got this nihilistic shield that prevents any of that from like affecting him.
Yeah,
I mean, he also does it like every other thing. So, you know, just like how which is kind of funny though. Like, you know, Rick didn't give a shit about like the Star Woman trying to murder him, but he was really pissed off of the fact that Jerry tried to murder him.
yes.
Like, wasn't his like philosophy like, you know, 20 people try and kill me every week, and I wind up getting high with half of them.
And he immediately just like
I-
off the spin of a hat, he like changes all that. But just like, okay, I'm gonna kill this guy because he just tried to kill us, and you know he's gonna turn back and try and kill us.
I mean, I think part of the reason Jerry pissed him off so much is I don't think he saw that coming. Like, he has just kind of come to expect so many people trying to murder him, and I think he had Jerry pegged just completely meek, helpless, and under his thumb.
Yeah.
And then realizing that he almost died, and the only reason he didn't was because the person he despises so much had a change of heart. That has to be infuriating.
Yeah, it's different when it's coming from someone he respects.
On some higher level, more than whatchamacallit, than fucking
Like sees as at least marginally competent.
Yes.
Yeah. as much as he hated the Vindicators, I'm sure he saw the Solar Woman as like at least. Oh, I'm kind of curious, Dan, the Trash Man. Did you what did you think of the Vindicator parody last week?
You know what? I thought some of it was really good. Some of it was kind of like dragged on. I loved that they wake up to Rick having shit on every center. That was the greatest like image by far of any episode I've seen in a long time. His ass is like still in the air. It's just mortifying. And like these are Morty's heroes. And so and then to like basically like be so like adamant in explaining how every single person here sucks, and creating this huge game after first destroying their world-ending enemy single-handedly, and then you realize, okay, drunk Rick, who blacked out, is actually a far worse enemy than they have ever faced. I mean, that's
the greatest enemy in the universe.
Yeah. And Rick can't even help him because he has no fucking idea what he did. It's all like speculation at this point. And the very greatest part was when they just, set you up and Morty to think that, underneath it all, he cares about Morty. Morty's the one true thing that he actually cares about. And no, it's what's his
fucking
name?
Noob.
Noob.
Motherfucking Noob.
Mr. Poopy Butthole.
He's pretty much just like Justin Roiland. Yeah. I feel like Justin Roiland has something where he has these like little stick figure screechy characters. Oh boy, wow, goddamn!
I think there's gonna be a connection between
jokes,
these two.
So it emphasizes the like lack of empathy of someone who's truly narcissistic. I think.
Yeah.
On a hilarious level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good argument for it. I thought it was like one of the weaker episodes of the season. Maybe just because like I wanted Dan Harmon to do a better Avengers Guardians of the Galaxy parody, and I knew he could have, but like when Rick and Morty does like a parody, like they usually do a good job or take it to like some other level than kind of like a basic bitch, and then just seeing like Rick like make fun of like characters who were designed to be stupid, just to me feel like I like Rick when Rick is challenged.
I mean, I went on a rant about what I would have preferred to have seen.
So I was curious to hear your thoughts about it. But, I mean, it's been a really good season. And even bad, mediocre Rick and Morty is still like better than like most of the greatest episodes of Futurama or anything you get out of Family Guy.
Yeah, Get Swifty was still a jam.
I'm really digging in this season the whole continuity thing. I feel like they really listened to the audience's suggestions and like what they wanted to get out of more Rick and Morty, and they've sort of taken that direction right off the bat with their pilot episode, just addressing a whole lot of things and doubling down on the conspiracies and the Easter eggs.
Well, they kind of had to after Rick was imprisoned at the end of the season 2, right?
But at the same time, though, everything's still kind of self-contained. Like, there's definitely like an overarching story arc, but because like everything's so broad and anything and everything can happen in Rick and Morty universe. Everything is largely self-contained. You can watch one episode without necessarily having to see a previous one, with maybe the exception of
right. But you don't really get some of the other references if you don't watch the ones before it. Like, I'm saying, like, okay, every episode is good on its own. However, it's far richer if you understand the history, because they do reference other old episodes. And those references.
And you have that soft continuity. Characters do grow.
Yeah.
I mean, except Rick. I guess technically Rick's kind of grows, but he is just doing his damnedest not to show it.
By the way, guys, speaking of continuity, did you know that Ethan was from a previous Rick and Morty episode? Back in like was like the homeless man.
That's
the homeless
right.
man in the biological Jurassic Park thing.
He has Anatomy Park still in him if it's the same universe.
Yes. Well, it's technically not the same universe. It's like a duplicate universe.
Right. Okay. So maybe not.
It could be though, because it could be like the exact same universe where almost the exact same things happened.
But he would have an anatomy park in him and be changed into a Cronenberg now.
Yeah.
I mean, so far as I've seen, he is. This universe is basically the same. Nobody has really pointed out like neither Rick or Morty has just pointed out like something is bizarrely different. Though that would be kind of an interesting twist for a future episode.
It is interesting that how Rick and Morty has sort of this soft continuity where, you know, everything matters and, you know, there is the like extended payoff, but not quite. It's still kind of largely self-contained. And I guess like that's Dan Harmon's greatest strength in this terms of like, you know, when he feels like he wants to pay something off with an emotional gut punch, he will, or if he just wants to completely disregard it because he has a better idea, he will.
Mm-hmm. He can pull anything out of any previous episode and bring it back. I like knowing that.
That's kind of interesting. I like that idea of soft continuity.
I have to say though, this episode did feel kind of like a return to more of a classic Rick and Morty feel, because Jesus Christ, the last couple episodes just have felt like Dan Harmon getting really fucking drunk and ranting about shit. just like paying someone to just like take down his nose. Because that is the stuff on Therapy and the Avengers stuff is basically stuff we've kind of heard very similar to
in Harmontown.
In Harmontown, yeah.
You ever listen to Harmontown, Dan the Trash Man?
No, but I will say that this episode was technically written by the same guy that did the Mr. Meeseeks episode.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Although, well, it's weird how crediting works on, like, and usually, like, what happens in, like, a TV writer's room is that, like, they'll go and they'll brainstorm, like, the overarching story beats of the episode, and then, like, one of the person will be assigned it, and they'll go off and then put it all together.
Right.
And then they're the ones who usually get, like, kind of story credit. Because, like, I don't know, even everything just has so much of, like, Dan Harmon's, like, fingerprints. And, like, that's one of the reasons why I recommend, like, listening to Harmontown. Because, like, you get to, like, listen to the beating heart of, like, what makes Rick and Morty so good. And why he's such a great writer. And how, like, how tortured he has to be to reach that. Like, God, one thing I would love to see is, like, a comedy animation death match between Matt Stone and Trey Parker or Dan Harmon.
How much do you think Justin Roiland has a say in the writing?
Probably a decent amount. I feel like all the sort of, like, kookier stuff and, like, screechy stuff is, like, you know, his influence, like the Mr. Poopy Butthole and like Noob, that feels like his, because, like, Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon have, you know, they were together in, like, Channel 101. Like, Justin Roiland did a lot of, like, comedy stuff on, and if you go back and watch those things, like the House of Cosby shorts, the weird thing he did for Acceptable TV with, like, the Cat in the Hat. Justin Roiland, his sensibility is just more of, like, the really bizarre stuff. Like, you know, the half of the things in, like, the interdimensional TV were just him, you know, doing, "Oh, I'm Answer My Eyes Johnson," and he's really good at, like, doing screechy voices. Like, I don't know. Any of you guys ever see Lemon Grab in Adventure Time?
Yeah.
That's Justin Roiland.
Okay.
I don't know what Lemon Grab is, but
I just know that Justin Roiland created the original cartoon that Rick and Morty is based on, which was like this ridiculously awful cartoon where it's Doc and Marty.
Yeah, that was for Channel 101.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. It's like, I guess it's one of those things, like, you wouldn't really know until you, like, or fly on the wall. But, like, if you listen to Harmontown, you see so much of, like, fucking Dan Harmon's, like, comedian ethics in, like, Rick and Morty.
All right. Check
out
Harmontown.
Like, I'll be entirely honest. Just after listening to a ton of Harmontown, the Unity episode is basically just like a swan song for Dan and his then wife Erin's relationship, where it's just like when he just, like, kind of recognizes and then just I guess sticks it in the show that just like they are just terrible for each other.
And
But-
just
Like, bring out the
manage to
worst.
bring out the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like all of the emotional fallout that comes with like ending a relationship like that.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting analysis.
And it's pretty much when you know the fact that like Aaron McGaffey is a redhead, and so is the Rick's love and the central like person of Unity, who's like the main like president person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely worth listening to. I kind of wonder. I feel like they're like both like reverse procrastinators, where Dan Harmon procrastinates till the very end until he has a great idea, while the South Park guys procrastinate to the point where they either put something out and it's great, or if it's suck and they just move on.
Well, South Park, like from what I read, was that they don't just procrastinate; they schedule like a few weeks to like get done everything. It's like they don't do this all year round. It's like, okay, we give ourselves just enough time, and it's all crunch time, and everyone's working overtime, and they're exhausted and just like knocking it out in real time. Which is why South Park is so culturally relevant, like always like news relevant.
But they only do it for like 10 weeks in a year, and then they're like off for the rest of the year to like enjoy their millions or work on side projects.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus because if you look at Dan Harmon's, I feel like they have similar comedy trajectories, but like I guess you could say like Matt Stone and Trey Parker have been more prolific than Dan Harmon. Because like Dan Harmon's projects are like a little bit more sporadic in terms of like he had like Community. Of course, Rick and Morty. He did like his weird pilots, like Heat Vision and Laser.
Oh God, it's fucking amazing the lengths he will go to not work on shit. Again, just like listen to Harmontown, and you will just kind of be privy to all of the dumb shit he does behind the scenes, and it's fucking glorious. Just like.
Well, I had to make this Death Star in Minecraft because
did you get anything done? Like, no. Well, so what have you been doing? I jerked off so much my dick chafed. And he's just so ashamed of himself.
Well, it's related.
Is that how Dan Howard talks?
Isn't that really Isn't that pilot you're supposed to do really late? Yeah, and I really hope NBC isn't listening to this.
All right, so it's getting late. I need to get ready for sleepy fun time. Let's get out to the scores. What would you give this guy? Is out of our 10 rating scale that we usually use? For me, it's a 9.
I give it like 8.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 8.5. It's not up to some of the best stuff I've seen out of Rick and Morty, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, ball slapping in the face is pretty good. I was curious, like, if we're ever gonna get like a sort of redemption Jerry storyline at all from this. Just like
the closest thing was him just like learning not to be parasitic in his family and being able to walk away. And he says, "You want to come in?" And he says, "Nah, I have to earn my way." That felt like it was like a little bit of character growth, a slightly less pathetic Jerry. It
was so slight though. It wasn't like Jerry didn't. I feel like Jerry didn't really have any likable moments at all. Like, it's really hard for me to like Jerry as a character at all. He's just like so down in the dirt.
I think it will be interesting to see if he improves once he's away from what is essentially a toxic relationship.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I'm surprised they haven't done that. Have like Jerry or Beth like date other people.
That would be interesting. I think that would
wait. We might have somewhere where this goes. Because remember, there was that one asshole in the Jerry daycare where Beth remarries.
There's also, when they got the goggles of other possible universes, where they were both very successful, and Jerry was doing very well as an actor.
Oh.
That would be interesting to see if we get like Tom Hanks Jerry evolve before the season's over.
God,
Right.
that would be amazing. Just have Beth and Rick just be absolutely fucking furious over the fact that he has just blossomed into a competent human being as soon as he was like removed from the two of them.
That would be like a nice little bit of a payoff.
Well, I'm curious what will happen. More of that stuff should happen, I think, in this series. Like more evolution between, like, I think Jerry and Beth's character. That'll be interesting.
So 9 for me, an 8.5 for Gorogregoro. Zavule, you were at 8.5.
Yeah, I was at an 8.5.
Dan, the garbage man.
I'm gonna give it an 8.
Mm.
You just thought it was like middle of the road in Rick and Morty?
No, I mean, I felt that I don't know. I actually liked Pickle Rick a lot more than this episode.
Really?
I
Yeah.
can see that.
I could. Pickle Rick is a lot more fun.
I
Oh, it's
got
not just fun. I really, really liked how they finally got Rick in a therapist's office
Oh my
And
god,
yeah.
yeah.
was able to rip Rick apart.
that was
And his
great.
response was just, I want to get drunk. I mean, it was you don't see like that sort of thing happening. What you normally see is like Rick just destroys his enemies, and he really normally nails other people to a T. But he got nailed this time, and his narcissism just wouldn't let him deal with it or learn from it. And it
Yeah.
really showed also how Beth was, so much, his daughter in that.
Yeah, because
Wow.
well, she has as much narcissism, and that was like the kind of the epitome of her little B plot of like her narcissism, and the only way she could actually make things right was to transform herself into a skinless monster.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of way, that's interesting. When she says she's a narcissist as well, like, isn't that when she turns herself into that monster along with Summer, she's trying to empathize with Summer?
Yeah. Yes. That is for trying to grow.
Yeah.
Inside Out.
You know?
Although, well, Greg was arguing earlier that was that like an Attack on Titan reference, and to me, it didn't feel like it was. Does Dan Herman even like anime? I don't think he's like a big anime guy.
Most
I'm
of the
not sure.
references are like 80s and 90s references. Like in this one, they reference The Fly, like
Yes.
they see, what's his name? Like a guy that looks exactly like
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. And he calls out a movie and tells him not to get into the pod because the teleporting pod is what like turns him into the Fly.
Well, The Fly was like a great remake, and
They
yeah,
reference the
obviously.
Fly all the time, I think, in Rick and Morty, too. It's like,
Mhm.
I think there's like literally a dimension called the Cronenberg dimension.
Well,
Whatever.
that's not just The Fly. That's just like David Cronenberg monsters.
Right, but we were talking about 80s and 90s, and they love that shit. And they also referenced when Summer got blown up inside out, then that was compared to shit. What was the name? It was another director that does shit like this.
David Cronenberg.
No, it wasn't Cronenberg. It was
John Carpenter.
No. What does Beth say? She says, "You." I'm trying to remember.
What was the movie? It was like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
No, it wasn't a movie. It was a director,
Okay.
and this director was like Cronenberg in that he does that kind of shit. Let me
I'm
see.
trying to think of what other David Lynchian. He kind of gets lobbed in with Cronenberg a lot. No idea.
It's Clive
idea.
Barker.
Oh, well, he's
Oh.
not really a director. He's more of like a horror writer.
You just say.
Okay, all right, but like they're throwing old school stuff. All the references seem to be like his time. It doesn't seem to be like
Yeah, that is true. You don't really see like a lot of like really modern stuff in Rick and Morty, and in a way, you know, given the fact that like it takes like a year and a half to like make a fucking episode, you know, the fact that like I mean, as much as I would love to see like Rick and Morty tackle some sort of Trump parody, it would just be too timely, and Trump wasn't even elected when they were probably writing most of these episodes.
But that's not what they're trying to do. I don't think. It seems like their goal is really to tackle the entire sci-fi canon, as opposed to just, you know,
current events.
Yeah, that is true. That is the sort of like canvas which Rick and Morty works off of. Yeah. All right, we should wrap this up. I need to go to sleep. Right. Time.
So what are we shilling?
What are we shilling? What do you think would be like the incredible 50-foot woman?
How about like a cup to like make sure your balls don't slap on somebody or?
No,
God.
Or Josh.
I'm going for the 50-foot woman. I think that's the most appropriate one. Unless someone else.
50-foot woman, or can you get the transmogrifier machine itself?
I don't think they sell. I don't think you can get that on Amazon. Yeah. That's how we generally do our shilling. Is like, you know, we look for like things on Amazon because that's how the affiliate links. I'm leaning towards 50-foot woman because I think I can like get that. Let's see, 50-foot woman. Is that an Amazon? Yep, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Okay, that's it. Go buy Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Rick and Morty plays tribute to all kinds of classic science fiction, and there's nothing more classic than this sort of pulpy thing that's, you know, probably sexist by today's standards. You know, it's even listed in Warner Brothers Cult Camp Classic, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Also, Jeff Goldblum's The Fly.
Oh, God. Well, was The Fly really applicable to this episode? Well, Jeff Goldblum was in it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll throw that in as well. Jeff Goldblum's the remake of The Fly, David Cronenberg's thing, classic AIDS epic. Go up there, go see these classic films, and click the link down below and watch them, or get something you actually do want on Amazon. Right. That helps me out. All right, so thank you for watching this whole Rick and Morty. Thank you, Dan from Trash Man, for joining us on our Rick and Morty sojourn. Yes. And remember, lobsters and tennis, don't you grab it.
I'm out of here.